how Grandpa acquired the gift of the werewolf and passed it on to me. In this story, I want to recount how I received the gift of the werewolf. Did anyone ask me if I needed such a gift, especially in our challenging times? No, but fate had different plans. The flickering flames danced their simple dance on the dark curtains that almost tightly covered the windows, which no one had tried to open for a long time. The fire in the fireplace would dim and then flare up again with renewed vigor, trying to conquer the gray semi-darkness that had enveloped the walls of the building since evening. Everything here seemed to be preparing for the mystery of the owner's transition into some new unknown state. It happens sometimes when a person is overtaken by illusion. And then the instigator of the imaginary triumph, who turned 90 today, feels like he has achieved a tangible success in his eternal and hopeless battle against time. The owner of this building flatly refused to celebrate his 90th birthday, stating that he did not want to see anyone on this day except for one grandson. I loved my grandfather, but I didn't see him often. In my 16 years, this was the 7th or 8th meeting when we went on vacation with my parents to visit him. Grandpa was a knowledgeable and versatile person. It was evident in his proud posture, spoken language with clear diction, and the ability to emphasize the right words. In his monologue, for better perception, he could either raise his voice or reduce it to a whisper, turning his speech into a theatrical performance. During each of our visits, he always found time to tell me a new story, perhaps even from his own life. Now, sitting by the fireplace for half an hour after dinner, Grandpa began his tale, and, as always, I sharpened my ears, set aside the book, and prepared to hear his next intriguing story. What you'll hear from me today, I haven't even told your father. Today, I'll share with you a story that is a part of my personal life, a very important part. Listen. It happened in 1918. It was a dreadful and unforgettable time. Houses and entire villages were ablaze. The very land was on fire, ignited by the conflicting hearts of those so close, yet sometimes so different, whether white or red. At that time, I had just turned 5. And my parents and I found ourselves in the midst of the Civil War. We lived in the village of Zulanica, located in the Mariinsk Volost of the Barnaul district. By the summer of 18, the Kolchak forces had already taken control. For a while, a detachment led by Lieutenant Romanovsky was stationed in our village. My father knew him slightly, so he welcomed him to stay for a few days. However, soon, near the village of Sorokino, Romanovsky's entire detachment was defeated by partisans, led by the anarchist Rogov, who struggled on the side of the Reds. As soon as Rogov's men occupied our Zulanica, the locals immediately betrayed my parents, accusing them of sheltering white guards. My mother and father were shot without trial or investigation on the same day. That evening, I ran into the woods. Throughout the night, I wandered through the forest, trying to reach the village of Zavyalika, where my father's relatives lived. Lost in the woods, tired and hungry, I eventually fell asleep, burying myself in the first haystack I came across. There, under the morning light, I was found by the local healer, rumored to be a sorcerer named Arteman. Spotting me in the haystack, he approached and asked, "Whose kid are you? Where did you come from? And how did you end up here?" Seeing a big bearded man arriving on a cart, I was initially frightened and burst into tears. The man gently patted my head and asked, or rather inquired, "Do you have parents?" "They were there," I cried louder. "They were killed." He took my hand and quietly said, "Come with me. We'll figure out a way to live together." That's how my life with Arteman began. He noticed something about me right away when he saw me and asked, "Do you want to become a sorcerer?" "Like you." Something along those lines. Is that good or bad? If you help people, it's good. If you harm them, it's bad. I sighed again and said, "All right then." He taught me everything he knew, and he knew a lot. It sometimes seemed to me that there was nothing he didn't know or couldn't do. Like a sponge, I absorbed all the wisdom of sorcery from him. Studied herbs, their properties, and methods of application. He taught me prayers, spells for various ailments, and other mystical knowledge. By the age of 10, I could remove curses, cast spells to alleviate illnesses, and relieve pain with just a simple touch. People came to Arteman almost every day seeking help, and he never turned anyone away. They paid him with food. He never accepted money. Gradually, he began entrusting me with some of his healing duties, and I slowly became involved in the art of healing. Once or twice a month, Arteman would leave the house for the entire night. When I asked where, he always replied, "I must go to commune with nature to comprehend its secrets and mysteries. Lie down and sleep peacefully. No one will harm you here. I'll be back by morning." He would return at dawn, and our usual day of work together would begin. He taught me to read, write, and count. He had books, including fiction, which I enjoyed reading in my free time, and would often reread several times. Soon, I became curious about his past, but he never shared much on that topic. He casually mentioned that his parents, wealthy and educated, were exiled here by royal decree and had long since passed away. "Why do you live alone?" I asked him repeatedly. At first, he gave evasive answers, but later he explained more clearly. I understood that it was related to his abilities and his healing practices. "Solitude is the fate of the strong. The weak always cling to the crowd," he always repeated. "But the world is vast, interesting, and beautiful. You yourself taught me that," I would tell him. "You'll understand later," he would grimly respond. That's how we lived together until I turned 16. And so, one night, he, as usual, was preparing to go into the woods, but then he reconsidered, stopped, and asked me, "We've lived together for 11 years. In that time, you've learned a lot from me, and realized that most of the knowledge and skills didn't come to you just like that. You were able to embrace it, not only thanks to me, Your teacher, but also because of your innate abilities. The ability to ease pain, induce sleep, hear thoughts, and so on. These things aren't learned easily. And you've known about it for a long time. When I first saw you, I knew right away that you would succeed. But there's one more ability we share. One that ordinary people don't possess. What else can you do that I don't know about? I asked him. Yesterday, you turned 16, and I can reveal to you the mystery of transformations. If you wish, you can master this art. Do you want me to show you its full beauty? Yes, I replied. Show me. That was the only thing I hadn't learned from him at that time. All right. Watch, but don't be afraid. After a while, it became completely dark. A massive moon emerged from behind the clouds and illuminated the yard outside the window, the road leading to the river and the village, the edge of the forest, and even the chain of hills that were barely visible during the day. Ardaman barely managed to open the door to the street when he fell onto his back and started rolling on the floor. With horror, I noticed how his strong and beautiful hands became thinner and shortened. The fingers of his hands spread apart, making way for claws. His back and chest decreased in size and rounded. Thick gray fur quickly emerged from all over his body. Within 2 minutes, I saw before me a large werewolf, which was even somewhat beautiful. The werewolf roared, and in that roar I heard, "We'll talk tomorrow. Go to sleep." He jumped out through the open door and dissolved into the night. I didn't sleep well that night, and I dreamed of werewolves, a whole pack of them, as if I were running with them. A young, strong wolf on the hunt, tearing warm meat with his teeth. In the morning, Ottoman brought me out of oblivion. He patted my head again and said, "Well, did you like what you saw?" And I replied, "Yes." "We'll explore transformations then?" he asked. "We will," I said. "For this, there exists an ancient werewolf ritual." He then described all its details to me. "Remember everything well. It might come in handy for you one day. We'll perform the ritual in the second half of the full moonlit night, at the edge of the forest. We'll need to light a bonfire. For the werewolf ritual, you need a wolf ritual. You need a wolf ritual. You need a wolf, but a wolf cub will do. It must bite you. I'll brew a special infusion from herbs and honey and place it in the ice cellar, keeping it there until the ritual. We'll start the ritual as soon as the moon's disk reaches its uppermost point. Undress down to your waist. Stand with your back to the fire. Drink a cup of the infusion and say specific words. Will I be a werewolf for the rest of my life? I asked. Yes, if you wish. Within a year after the ritual, you can undergo a purification ceremony. This is because only a newly born werewolf cannot change their essence. I'll tell you about the reverse ritual afterward. But remember, if you perform this ritual, one of your descendants will inherit the gift of the werewolf, whether they want it or not. And they, in turn, have exactly 1 year from their 16th birthday to the first full moon to willingly rid themselves of this gift through a purification ritual. One night of the ritual, Artaman brought a wolf cub in his teeth, which snarled ferociously and tried to bite its tormentor. Naturally, as soon as I offered my hand to him, he bit me with all his might and immediately dashed away into the woods with a victorious growl. From that day on, 2 werewolves roamed the surroundings during the night outings. It was a wonderful sensation of strength, agility, and speed as we raced, chasing a hapless rabbit or a trembling deer. The taste of warm blood, the sound of crunching bones. All of this thrilled me, a young werewolf, until we unexpectedly stumbled upon hunters. There was a wolf hunt organized in the village, and we were unaware of it. Artaman saved me that time, shielding me with his body from the bullet as the marksman aimed at the beast with his rifle. I won't disclose what I did to that marksman. The next morning I sat at the table, put my head in my hands, and cried for a long time. In 11 years, I not only got used to Artaman, but also came to love this remarkable man in my own way. Over time, I realized that the saying about solitude wasn't for me, and that I need to live among people. Most importantly, I had to go without the werewolf gift. In the upcoming full moon, I successfully underwent the purification ritual. From then on, it was the life of an ordinary human. Evening school in Gorno, Altesk, then a teacher's institute in Barnaul. After that, there was the war. Conscription in July 1941. Numerous injuries, 2 bravery medals, the Order of Glory, other medals. The Order of Glory, but you've seen and know about all that. I've lived an interesting life and never regretted the past. 5 years ago, we buried your grandmother. We met just a year before the war. She was a wonderful, faithful companion to me for almost 58 years. Your father was born in 1946, and today I invited you to my 90th birthday alone to specifically tell you about the werewolf gift, which has been in you for 16 years, waiting for the first full moon. And I also want to talk about, stunned by all this unexpected information that had suddenly come crashing down on me. I didn't notice or didn't hear as my grandpa suddenly gasped for breath. His left hand reached for his heart, while his right one fumbled in the pocket of his robe in search of pills. I only realized all of this when Grandpa stopped gasping and his lifeless hand hung down. Grandpa's head leaned on his shoulder. His back slumped against the chair's backrest. Only then did I understand that my beloved Grandpa was no more. He left without saying goodbye. But most importantly, he didn't get to say what he called me for. Alone, I shook him for a long time, screamed, scolded Grandpa, then cried, begged, and pleaded with him to reveal the purification ritual, to rid me of the dreadful gift. But Grandpa remained silent. The large room with sealed windows felt suffocating. I approached the nearest window, pulled back the curtains, and flung it open wide. The fresh coolness of the July night flowed through the window. It became a bit easier to breathe. But then I noticed how a huge moon emerged from behind the clouds. A terrifying force threw me to the floor. The world spun before my eyes. I rolled on the floor, afraid to see how my body changed, how huge claws emerged. Teeth altered, and thick gray fur sprouted from everywhere. After a few minutes, I felt immense lightness throughout my body, the strength of fangs, the power of claws, and a vast array of scents that teased and lured me into the forest. Emitting a triumphant roar, I leapt out of the window and raced into the woods with frenzied bounds, embracing the new reality that awaited me.